I just think I have a different view of looking at the world, and I have this ability, some people call it magic, I don't know. I can see that. I can see people's future.
Kathryn Sandford, a LinkedIn personal branding and career success coach. She has built a reputation for helping professionals navigate the challenges of today's job market. She believes mastering this skill is key to staying relevant and unlocking opportunities. Her unique approach goes beyond conventional job search strategies.
I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think, my byline is I've been fired 3 times.
What happens if someone doesn't have a personal brand? What's the impact of not having a brand?
I just think there's a loss of direction, a loss in purpose.
Can you give me an example of someone who has a phenomenal personal brand?
I think if you go to people like Mel Robbins, Brené Brown, hugely empathetic and is very good at reading people and understanding what it's like to be human.
How do you know you have outgrown an opportunity where you are right now?
Dissatisfaction, feeling uncomfortable, and redundancy, losing your job. That's the grief that you keep inside, and I think that's what causes the most pain.
2,000 public sector jobs have either been set to be eliminated or have been eliminated in New Zealand as we speak. And that's
it's a lot of grief,
people.
A lot of grief, a lot of silent grief going on there.
Kathryn.
Mina. Hello.
Hi. What is the earliest context or earliest memories that we need to know about you to get a feel for this conversation so people get to know who you are?
Let me see. I think the earliest, I chose to go to boarding school, which was unusual because most children were told to go to boarding school. But I chose to go to boarding school, and I would have been 12, I think, 12, 13. When I started thinking about it when I was about 11 or 12, because I had ended up in the way they assessed you as a child those days was quite a stringent, and it just didn't suit me. And I ended up being the lowest bottom class. There was nowhere else to go. And that was okay, but I knew instinctively that I just shouldn't have been there. I didn't belong. And in those days, you never questioned the education system. You just did. So I thought, how do I get out of here? And the only way I thought I could get out was to go somewhere different, go to boarding school. And I'd been reading this book, and I can't remember the name of it, about a girl who'd gone to boarding school and how she had made all these friends and things. And I thought, okay, I'll go. And much to my parents' horror, because that was like, what?
Yeah.
However, they did support me and they understood what I wanted. And I ended up, going to boarding school. And that's probably one of the earliest when I made that decision that I didn't fit in. And how am I going to get out? Or how am I going to make sure that was probably the first time, I'm worth more. I know I'm worth more. I know I can do more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you've described yourself as someone who, and I quote, always been a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, I have. Some people tell me I've got ADHD. I don't think I have. I just think I have a different view of looking at the world. And I have this ability, some people call it magic. I don't know. I can see that. I can see people's future. Like I can talk to people and I can see it.
Intuitive.
Yeah, intuitive, but it's more that it's like I can see, like I'm looking at you now and I can see your future.
What do you see in my future?
Just amazing potential. I can see people's potential. Now, and it's often the case of supporting, and that's how I've got into coaching, is to support people to unleash that, to get out there and help them live their potential, unleash their potential.
Well, that's perfect that you've mentioned working with people, because you work with people to improve their personal brand. Or
that's kind of the transactional statement. I think that where I see a personal brand, and that's come through my own experiences, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I think my byline is I've been fired 3 times. So, and that has a lot to do with the fact that I had no clarity And I didn't know what questions to ask in regard to, is this the right role for me, or is this the right organisation where I can add value and shine? I just conditioned myself to think, oh, it's a good salary and they like me, I'll go do it. Not that I couldn't do the job, it just wasn't the place where I could really be myself and add true value. And when you're in an environment like that comes back to that square peg in a round hole. You struggle because you just can't deliver. And I'm very results orientated. I just want to get it done. I just want to achieve it. But I'm also part of that understanding is I have to have a team behind me. And if the team's not getting how I work, and there's disconnect, then it becomes a struggle. So the personal brand is all about the self-realization, self-awareness, having clarity about who you are.
So there's a brand and there's a personal brand. What's the difference?
I think the personal brand is all one. You can't separate the two. This is like when you walk into the room, that's who you are. And people, the personal brand, I've tried to come up with a different term or a different way of describing it because it's become quite, quiche. Is that the word, quiche?
What's quiche?
I don't know. It's just like everybody uses it. I can't think of the word now, but, it's about just knowing who you are. And I see it behind me. You've got Simon Sinek's book, Know Your Why. Well, that book there is the foundation of building your personal brand. It's building you, knowing your why. And what does that why mean? And how do you implement it? So there's 3 aspects to it, what is a personal? Know your why, know your what the strategy is around implementing that why, and know how you're going to do it.
What happens if someone doesn't have a personal brand? What's the impact of not having a brand?
I just think there's a lot of direction, a loss in purpose. I think that you will tend to, and I come across that a lot with recruiting when people are applying for jobs, the pain and struggle they go through because there's just no clear vision, strategy.
So it's basically earning potential.
It can be, I think, but it just gives you clarity around how to move forward because you have a clear strategy. So instead of what I call spray and pray, your applications to seek, you're more in tune with a strategy on how you go about looking for a job. So you're more in tune with your networks. You understand what relevance and influencing means. You have a clear CV. Your LinkedIn profile's all aligned. So all the pragmatic elements of a brand are in place now. And you really, once you've got those in place, then you just go and implement it. You just go and make it happen.
And you excel. You're an expert in that.
I don't like being an expert. I've been through a lot. I've got a lot of experience in it. I've still got lots more to learn because, hey, I'm not perfect. I struggle. I have self-doubt. I have lots of, loads of, I've got wonderful procrastination beliefs. Stop. And that procrastination comes from the lack of focus because I've lost focus. So, I have to bring myself back. So I think that it enables you to probably have more success at achieving what you desire.
Does everyone need a personal brand?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In today's world.
The mum,
anybody. Because it's all about relevance, right?
Yep.
You've got to be relevant. And I don't think you need to term it, as I said earlier, as a personal brand. I just think you need to know what makes you relevant. Who are you? Do you want to be relevant?
Can you give me an example of someone who's has a phenomenal personal brand and who could it be?
I think if you go to the people like Mel Robbins, Brené Brown.
If we take Brené Brown, maybe tell us who Brené Brown is and why would you think, if someone is listening and thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to have a personal brand. Okay, well, Brené Brown might have a good personal brand. Then who is she and why does she have a good one?
I think she's a very empathetic person. She's academically, she's very steeped in her qualifications around sociology, the human, how to interact and behave. And she's done a lot of work and research on it. But she also has another side of her, which is huge, as I said, hugely empathetic, and is very good at reading people and understanding what it's like to be human. So she focuses a lot of her work on how to build that muscle of being human, a great human. And she talks about in one of her most watched videos, which really turned my life around, was how to be vulnerable, the power of being vulnerable. It's just, I watched that. I was like, oh my God, that's me. I can do that. I'm okay with that. And once you realize, meeting these and watching these people, you get so much to learn. There's other ones, Susan David. She's a doctor, Susan David. She does a lot of work about emotional agility. She's great. Very more academic, I think, but really good. Very different personality, but very clear in who she is. And then I think you look at Mel Robbins. She's probably got a different personal brand, but very clear in who she is. And she's more expressive in her own journey and her vulnerability. And that's been a winning formula for her because she lives it. Mm. Those are famous ones. Then I've got a lot of friends, particularly in the Māori space where they're just like amazing. My friend Jenny is she's a doctor of research. She's phenomenal. And she's just so switched on and go in awe. You know those people you think, oh my God, you're amazing.
So what is the common thread between these women that you've just mentioned, and why do they have a great brand?
They're clear about their purpose, their why, very clear. They know. They know why they're there, and they know what they're doing, and they know how to do it.
So for someone who is like a stay-home mum who may be looking to go back to the workforce and, wants to be positioned, to have a good start back to a good life. Not that she wasn't having a good life. And, but, so for a stay-home mum, if she wants to start doing that sort of step on, okay, I need to get my personal brand in shape, how would she need to start doing that?
I think she needs to figure out her why. Why does she want to do it?
Why does she want to do?
Why does she want this personal brand? Why does she want? What does she want it for? Usually,
what questions should she be asking? 3 questions, or
is it? Well, usually working on your brand is a process of change. So you have to go from comfort to uncomfortable. There's no way you can stay in your comfort zone of what you know. To create a brand and act on that, you have to go through into the uncomfortable, into the unknown. But you have the right support mechanisms. But the fact is that she has to figure out why does she want it. And usually change comes from 2 drivers. One is the desire to want more, that I'm worth more. I know I can do more, but I just don't know how. Or the pain of being in a place where you just I can't do this anymore. I have to do something. I have to do it. I have to change because I just don't want it. So those are the 2 drivers for change. So for that mum, it's all around what's driving her desire. Is it for a personal brand? Is it the desire to be more valued, to be more recognised, to be more relevant, which is important? Or is it in a place of pain? And then the path to discovering that are different pathways because you come from a different place.
What is your personal brand?
My personal brand is not. That's a great question. My personal brand is where I know who I am. So I'm a co-creator. I love creating opportunity. I love unleashing people's potential. I'm a connector, and I'm basically an energy energy bunny. So my energy enables me to connect. And because I have this ability to read potential, I can bring people on board quite easily and enable them to see the change. And that probably comes from my teaching background as well. I love teaching. I'm a born teacher. I just love standing in front of people saying, do this, do that.
What did you teach?
I taught history, Māori, and PE. And I taught in a variety of schools. I taught in South Auckland. I've taught in East London. I've taught in a Catholic girls' school. So loved it. I love teaching. I love teaching kids. But unfortunately, the system and the environment was, it was time for me to go. I'd outgrown it.
Mm-hmm. How do you know you have outgrown an opportunity where you are right now?
Dissatisfaction, feeling uncomfortable. Those are the negative drivers. And also the desire, because you can add more value, you can do more, and the ceiling of not being able to do that, or the constraints. And in an organisation where it's quite micromanaged, it's, for me, I just want to let me go and achieve. Let me go do the results. I'll get them for you. But don't ask me to report back on a daily basis,
You don't like to be micromanaged. No one likes to be micromanaged.
Nobody likes to be micromanaged. It diminishes productivity, engagement, motivation. And it usually comes from a place of fear.
What 3 pieces of advice would you give to our listeners and our viewers who are at the beginning stages of building their brand?
At the beginning, I think you can't do it alone. There's just no way. And I think that you've got to look at what you are prepared to invest in. What is your investment? And what is that return on investment? And the other thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And it constantly, but the foundations and pillars of that journey, of that brand, of your personal brand, remain solid. But the actual implementation is the journey. And so the personal brand doesn't give you the answers straight away, because many people come to me looking for a job and say, help me with my brand and I want to get a job. It's like, well, you will, but the journey to getting that job is the experience.
What's the journey? What do they need to do? What's the journey involved?
The journey is that you have to experience the ups and downs. You have to actually implement what you're learning. So for example, if you read books like Simon Sinek, you actually have to educate yourself. And how are you going to apply what you've been learning from Simon Sinek? If you listen to Brené Brown, how are you going to apply it? Who are those teachers that resonate with you that you can learn from? But you also have to apply it. You can learn. Knowledge is only power when you action it. So you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not actioning it, nothing. So
you get paid for what you implement? That's what I hear.
For what my clients implement.
Yeah, you or for.
Well, I am a bit of a that's when I put my teacher voice on.
Yeah.
And go.
How many voices do you have?
I have probably up 5 or 6.
Can you name them?
I have my empathetic voice. I have my courageous voice. I have my potential voice, in the sense of I see your potential. I have my teacher voice, where I just don't take shit. I just like, nah, you're going to do it. And I got my takeaway voice, where I take away opportunity.
What's takeaway voice?
Take a voice, don't do it. No, you're right. Just sit there and don't do it. Be miserable. Don't action it. Oh, actually, why don't you blame me?
So people need a coach if they have a person. If someone's, like going, well, I don't have a lot to invest into someone helping me to have a personal brand. What can they do to be able to start the process and maybe at some stage, I don't know, find someone like yourself who able to navigate them through that journey? What 3 things can they do to start?
I think they need to figure out what they want, what their commitment is. What does commitment look like? And what's their return on the investment? What is the investment they're going to make? Is it going to be going to courses? Is it going to be reading books? As I said before, you can get all the knowledge, but you've got to action it. And I think that there's always a way. You can get a mentor, someone that can support you through the process. That's if you don't have the funds. I got a coach to help me. I've got a PT trainer to help me. So, without them, I don't think I'd be sitting here. So,
Well, that's a profound statement because it goes to show that the coach needs the coach.
oh,
Who needs the coach? Who needs the
100%.
coach? It
Yeah,
never
we're all
ends.
coached up. Somebody, it must finish somewhere though, eh? Because how many coach? Yeah, but my coach has a coach. Yeah,
It's probably a circle that will come back to you.
yeah.
If someone does have a personal brand and they have established it and they feel like, how do they know that they've differentiated themselves from the many other brands out there, the personal brands out there?
It's an interesting question. I don't think you have to worry about it because you just know who you are. Like, it takes away all the chaos and noise. So I know where I'm really good. I know what I play well at. I know my sandpit with all my toys. So I don't have to worry about having to be something that I know that I won't be and all the noise around that. And people can say, oh, you're a square peg in a round hole. I'm proud of that because it gives me the ability to think outside the box, to be creative. And if you want that, then I'm the person. Now, if you don't want that and you want detail, structure, then go get someone else and I'll recommend someone else. So I'm very clear. And so about who I am, what I do, what value I deliver and how I best do that.
What are your top values?
I'm open, I'm honest, and I'm fair. So how I demonstrate that is open. I can only tell I'm fully participating. So like we're sitting here today, I'm with you. We're 100% in there. I'm not thinking about anything else, or I'm 100%. And honest, I can only tell myself truth. Like today, you asked my opinion, I'll just give it. That's my truth. And if people disagree with it, that's okay because I'm only just telling you my self-truth. And fear is I acknowledge. I may not agree, and I may find it a bit weird, but I'll acknowledge what you've just said. That's how I operate.
Okay, you talk a lot about this on LinkedIn.
Oh, what? I talk about many things on LinkedIn.
You talk about landing your dream job and how branding, of course, strategy, and landing your dream job. Have you landed someone their dream job?
I think so, yeah. If you look at my recommendations, I have.
Can you tell me maybe?
I think how I've helped people land there is that given them that clarity and confidence and belief and action plan to go out there and get it, but also very clear on expectations that it's, as I said earlier, it's part of a journey, right? So your dream job because you've got your brand, doesn't mean to say that you're going to get it, but you know how to look for it and you know how you're going to best add value in that. And so one client I had, he gave up his job before he actually came to me. And I've always said, if you're going to be in a job, stay in it until you figure out what your next one is. It's just realistically easier. He didn't. However, he was really motivated to get the next thing, and he wanted to do a whole pivot. And so my job was to coach him on how to do that, what the best strategies were, pragmatically align his CV. He's a musician and he's also a professional operational manager, quite senior. So he's got this kind of creative, how does he bring the two together and what kind of environment would those two elements of who he was thrive? And so when he went out there, he'd come back to me and say, I've got this. And it ticks he wrote a list by himself, pros and cons. And then he finally got the job last week. And he's happy. It's like, yes.
And you're happy, of course.
I'm happy because it worked. He worked at it though. He worked out. I was just the bouncing board. I wasn't. And that's the thing about the coach. And that's the thing with my PT trainer, right? I have to do the work. I have to do it myself. I can't not do the program and come back next week and say, oh, let's do it again. Because it's like, so this is the same as coaching. You have to do the work. You just, if you're not going to do the work, then it's a waste of money.
You're passionate about branding and success.
Yes, I know, because it solves a lot of problems.
Where did that passion come from?
Because I got fired 3 times and I realised that I had a part to play in it and I need to figure out myself. figure out I don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes. So I had to change. So I got a coach. And she was the one that started working with me to figure out who you were and what I wanted, and my sort of, the value, my strengths, and getting clarity around that.
Being fired for 5 times is
3 times, not
3
5.
times. Oh, okay.
3. God. That was enough. It only took me 3 times, but that was enough. Usually it's 1.
Did they all have, obviously they propelled you to be so, to be successful at what you do right now, and to bring so much change, positive change into people's lives. But at the time, if you go back, it would have, like, if you take us back to those experiences, it would have been painful to remember, wouldn't it? So how did you deal with it while you were in it? Like the first experience, second experience, and the third experience.
The first experience was confusing because I was actually doing okay, but I was challenging and I wasn't fitting into the box. But I didn't understand why, because it really wasn't. It was just
you were challenging the system above, the people above, the C-suite, the executives, your boss, your manager.
Yeah, because as a teacher, you're used to challenge, right? You're used to questioning. How else do you figure it out?
Yeah.
So that part of my was, how do we do it better? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't you and then being instructed to do what I do, and which was building relationships and sales in a certain structured way, just wasn't working. And they just wanted to report, and that was the micromanaging element. But I took that job because the money was great and the interview was easy. Like wow. It's like, okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
they're nice, and they were nice people. It was just a misalignment, it just didn't work out.
You were great and they were great.
They were fun. Yeah, I was just the wrong fit.
Piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
If someone is in a position right now that is feeling a misfit, and they are maybe too afraid to leave, don't know if they have the courage to leave, how do they navigate their way around that tricky situation?
Come and see me. I think what you need to do is you just need to get brave. Just find your courage. And to do that,
how can you find courage?
I think you just do more self-reflection.
What do you do through self-reflection? What are you
look
supposed
in the mirror,
to be reflecting?
Look in the mirror and go, what the fuck's wrong? What do I need to do? That is the best thing, is you look in the mirror and you say, okay, Kathryn, this is not going on. What are you going to do to help yourself get out of that? You're just going to have to do something. Name one thing. And you look in the mirror and you look at yourself and you think, we don't look at ourselves enough in the mirror and have conversations. I do it a lot because it just gives me the realistic view of I have to do this. Yes, I'm scared, and acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge your fears, beliefs, and you just got to get real. And the only person, and that's the thing which I love, is the power of choice. That is the only thing you have where you can respond to anything in life, is your power of choice. And it's an and. You make a choice and you can make another choice. So at the time, you make the choice knowing that that's the best choice at the time. And then you make another choice when it doesn't work out. And the only person you have to worry about is you. Nobody else has control of that. You're the only person. And that probably is the key about the personal brand. It gives you your power of choice back.
How have you used your power of choice in your life for the good?
For good. Apart
from leaving those jobs, 3 jobs.
I didn't really know what my power of choice was until the third one. I think my power of choice is a muscle. It's a muscle you have to keep using. And, it doesn't it's not I'm in my power of choice and now I'm making my choice. It's a process. And for me, for many people, it's quite a quick process where they could make, that's it. I've decided. I'm clear about it. Whereas me, because I am more emotionally connected to people, it takes me a while to work through the process of utilising and implementing my power of choice, because I've got to work out the energy and connection that sits there. And when it's disconnected, I have to go through a process internally within myself to make the choice. No, this has to go.
What's the process?
The process is what I call probably letting go. It's just recognizing that I have to let go of something, because I'm an optimist, right? I struggle with believing that people can be that bad and that mean.
So what do you continually having this sense of being optimism that the situation will improve, so you stick around for a little bit longer?
Yeah, because the hopeful optimist, apparently I've been tagged. I belong to the...
Do you agree with that tagging?
Yeah, yep, definitely. I always have hope. I mean, there's no other way you can get out of the hole if you don't have hope, because hope is future orientated, right? If you have no hope, you have no future thinking. So you got to have hope, because that's the only way you're going to get to the future or think about the future.
What's the hope for you? How do you define hope?
I think hope is a feeling internally that you feel safe and okay. That you feel, it's okay. I can see it. I can feel it. And then the action of hope is, what can I do to action to get that hope feeling going?
You so we're talking about hope, talking about power of choice. Do you think people understand their power of choice?
Probably not. No, I've come across it a lot in recruiting. The pain that people are going through, particularly at the moment, is just, it's actually quite scary. It's a fear-based pain, and it's what I read this book, and I can't remember the author. Why didn't they tell me this before? Why didn't I know this? And one of them, she talks about silent grief, and that's the grief that you can't actually express, and redundancy, losing your job. That's the grief that you keep inside, and I think that's what causes the most pain. Whereas the grief of the divorce or the grief of death is a visible grief. You still have to go through it's different processes of dealing with it. But the silent grief is that's the one that I believe, and for me, probably hits the most spiritual side of me and my mental health, is silent grief.
Okay, well, silent grief doesn't sound easy and nice at all.
No, it's not.
Is it worse than grief?
Can be.
Why is it worse?
Because you keep it hidden. Because you want to be seen and perceived. And, and the thing is, people have been made redundant, and they come to me, and I've been made redundant, and and it, I'll get through. It's okay. And I always say, no, don't come work with me. You just go and sit there and have a good cry. Just do something nice. Don't worry. It's hard, but I recognize your grief, and you have to acknowledge it. But many don't, and that comes out in their behaviour. So when they go for jobs and it's not going well, the energy that they bring to the room or to the interview, people feel it, and that's where we have to work with that.
I mean, 2,000 public sector jobs have either been set to be eliminated or have been eliminated in New Zealand as we speak. And that's a lot of
grief.
People.
A lot of grief. A lot of silent grief going on there.
A lot of redundancies and disruption to family life.
Destruction, yep.
And uncertainty, maybe hopelessness.
Yep.
Someone listening, if someone is listening, has just been laid off, thinking, how can I rebrand myself? What do you suggest for that particular person in that phase of life and mindset right now?
Practically, I think that what they should do is write a list of their pain. So just write it down, a journal. Just write down how you're feeling, why you feel like that. Just write it all down. And the second thing is then once you've done that, I think that you should do some reading about dealing with the grief process so that you understand where you're at and then accept it. It's just the reality. The third thing is that you make a plan, and it's a life plan, and you look at what's important financially. So if you're going to have to look for a job, what does that mean from a financial perspective? How much money have you got? How much don't you have? So the financial plan is really important because it's flow. So money is flow, right? And if you don't have that written down, and you have a partner, doing it alone is not great. It's a bit scary. So I think that if you've got a partner, to sit down and work it out together, that plan and the job search strategy, put that in place.
I did have a question about how do you you're in a position of you've just lost your job and you're looking for another job. How can you position yourself to be authentic and not fake? Because one can easily go, oh, I've got to get something together because I've got to write my CV again, I've got to update my LinkedIn, and I need to get a job fast. And so rushing the process can come across, not authentic. How do you stop yourself? And how do you...
Oh, that's a very mean question to ask.
Mean? Why is it
mean? Because it's deep and it's hard. Because we go back to dealing with the pain of losing a job. Right? So you've got to deal with that. Rushing to get a job, and that's what I've done, because when I got fired the first time, I rushed into getting another one. That didn't work out well. So in the answer to that question, it was you just don't rush. And I don't think it being authentic, it's just you're not strategic enough to understand how to position yourself. You just don't have the skills and the knowledge to do it. So what you're doing is you're just acting on instinct because the driver is to get the job. So really, if you sat back and planned a strategy and knowing that the world of work is changed, applying for jobs on job boards such as Seek is like spray and pray, hit a lottery. It's not great. You may get a job, but the chances are low because there are so many people applying. And so in that sense, you need to have a really clear strategy of understanding how do I create the opportunity, and that usually comes through your networks. And that's where a personal brand is really important, because you keep your networks, you know how to keep them informed, and you know that they know who you are. And the tool that you can do that through is LinkedIn. It's a no-brainer. And you don't have to be a social media influencer. You don't have to, but you just need to be seen, visible, because when you're visible, it builds your credibility. When you have credibility, you have trust. So it's a logical step or steps to maintaining your relevance in the work. So therefore, you have to understand that redundancy is like change. If you're an organisation, expect to be made redundant. 2 years. That's just the way it is. There's no other. That's just the way it is. And people who talk about surviving redundancies in an organisation is dangerous, because you need to have a plan B. You always have to have that CV up to date. You always have to have your LinkedIn profile, and you need to be relevant and seen on LinkedIn. That's if you want to have and be prepared and be relevant in the job market. If you're not.
Well, you're great, because you've just answered my other question, and that is, how do you use social media to brand yourself?
Yeah, LinkedIn. the only way to
How
do
do
it.
you use LinkedIn?
I think you use LinkedIn in a way, first of all, you sort out why you want to be on LinkedIn. And
Why do people want to be on LinkedIn?
I think because it's a professional social media platform where people go to present themselves and position themselves as professionals. Businesses are there, right? I think there's something like 200, how many? I don't know how many, I don't know the statistic, of decision makers and I use LinkedIn every day. I go looking for people when I'm recruiting. And I just think that it's just and it's free unless you want to pay the premium. But really, you can get on LinkedIn for free, put your profile up, make sure you get CV, get a good photo, follow the format, know how to optimize your profile. It's not hard.
How do you optimize a profile?
Well, you just make sure that you do your reading, get some research and find out what an optimized profile looks like. And that is having a good sort of a headline, a tagline, great photo, a really good about section that's personalized. You attach your CV to so that people can find you. And you encourage people and you target organizations that you want to work with. You comment, not every day, but you just maintain some visibility. And so when people come and find you, they go, oh, they can see you. Not this messed up. Some people don't have photos. Some people just put I had a job the other day where I got, a couple of weeks ago, 197 applicants. Of those 197, 3 I considered.
Wow.
And they did not get the job, those 3. I didn't even put them forward, but I looked at, considered them. The person who got the job was via LinkedIn.
The person who you hired was through LinkedIn. Yeah, that's quite shocking. 197 applications, only 3 were considered. And none of them got the job, or one of them got the job?
None of them got the job. So I went on LinkedIn and this woman had her the profile sorted.
How is the recruitment industry changing? Because with the advent of AI and digital media, the thought of applying for a job on a website like Seek, where you have to upload a piece of document with only with writing, with no emotion, no expression, no third level, let me tell you who. And actually it goes well on the other side, is like when you apply for a job on CV, what you've been shown is a list of things, not the feel of the governmental organizations, or it could be the feel of the organization. It doesn't tell you the vibe of the organization. It doesn't have any sort of, and I came to think about this recently because I thought there was a bit of a disconnect about finding work these days, and how, like, you would want to know who's going to be your boss straight away. You would want to know who your team is. Do you see this a problem that needs changing?
I think that applying for a job is really, really hard. And it is because, first of all, the person employing and this is in my opinion, I'm only talking about my experience, is they just don't know what they're looking for. So they write this huge job ad that covers everything because they want the Rolls Royce, right? But they're not clear about it. And attracting talent into an organization is not about, does this person fit? It's about, how does this person add value? And what is the value we need from this person in order for us to be successful in this particular role? When you look at it from that perspective, it creates diversity of thought, because you know that this person has, data analytics, and therefore needs to be quite structured and needs to be quite thorough and detail orientated. Those are the attributes you look for. And then you look, okay, if we have this person, what that enables them to do is to give us perspective, because the rest of the team is pretty, vivacious, creative, but we need that structure and we need to have someone in there So the value that they're going to bring is their ability to bring structure, but they need to bring it in a way where they're aligned to who we are. And so therefore we've got to attract them to who we are by sharing the team and letting them know what we like. So that's a very different process. It's a successful process if you are, as an organisation, open to changing the way you think. But most organisations stick to what they know. And that is, I believe, destructive. And they talk about diversity and inclusion and equity, DEI, but that comes from, it's more just, and this is in my opinion, a checklist, right? And an award. The reality is, how do you translate that into the way you bring people and treat people into the organisation? And usually that comes from opening up and being vulnerable. And organisations, businesses don't do it.
How can they be more vulnerable, do you think?
I think they need to be honest with themselves. For example, very simple things. If people apply for the job, we'll get back to them.
Whether they get it or not.
Respect, whether they get it or not. It's just a matter of respect.
I agree.
So we don't want to be getting, if you're going to adopt AI, that's fine, but set up your schedules so that people are getting notified. If you're going to have an interview with someone, make sure you follow up within a short period of time.
Because sometimes organizations come back to you late.
They do.
And you don't know because they've had a delay in some things, but they're still actually keen to have you interviewed. But you don't know. There's no information, no communication.
No.
What would be an ideal way of recruiting today?
I think just what I've just said. It's just being really clear about who you're looking for, who's the person the type of person that's going to add value, the attributes that they bring with them. How does that fit into where you want to go and what you want your organisation to do to be successful?
How should that look like? Should it look like what it looks like today, or should have a completely different disruption to the way we recruit?
I think it should be similar. I don't think you should deviate too much. So when you write your ads are attracting ads. So they attract by being vulnerable and being open. You can get, in the sense of set the expectation of what you're looking for, and the process is clear. So you may want to have videos, but you actually have a process that people can see. And I think that once it's all about setting expectation, then you set the standard of what this process involves. There's these 4 steps. We commit to, if you get an interview, we will follow up. That process is clear. So the processes are very clear, and you just keep to the process. That's it. It's not that hard.
There's a bit of a discussion about whether or not you should have colour in your CV.
Oh, yeah, go for it. I've looked at so many boring CVs.
Yeah.
Just, this is the expression. Now, my saying is your CV is only, it just gets you to the door, right? Your personal brand takes you through the door and into the future. So your CV needs to be aligned. So it needs to present some element of you. And, people say, should I have a photo? And I was like, have it. A really great photo, because that's energy. And a clear, very well laid out and formatted 2-page CV with a great cover letter. That's not ChatGPT, but you could use ChatGPT to help you format it, but you use your language and you tell your story.
Where do you see the career market heading? The career market. Where do you see the career market in terms of how jobs are, what jobs are going to come, what jobs are going to go, especially with AI again? Do you have any insights?
I think that connecting the human being jobs, I think, I'm not afraid of AI. I think it's great. I think it just, it speeds up the efficiency of doing stuff. So in a manufacturing perspective, the production of, I think you get access to a far better, more efficient way of doing it, and you can utilize it. But AI can only be great when you use it properly. I mean, it can't It can't sit, it's inactive until we actually use it. So therefore, you use it to add value rather than diminish value. And so if you're in a role or a job where you can see and you're aware of the future and your relevance, I think if AI is coming in and you're concerned about that in regard to your role, you should be doing something about it, not sitting there with your head in the sand thinking it won't happen. However, there are some roles that will always be there.
How has AI affected you?
Oh, it's made my life so much easier.
How?
I think it just gives me, because I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of, and I'm quite creative. So it gives me the ability to write down lots of ideas and then come back and then say to me, well, what do you think is the best if I did this?
Yeah.
So it gives me it's a good sounding block, for me to bounce ideas off or to get ideas.
Do you think that now you're a bit more dependent on AI? On ChatGPT, for example?
ChatGPT, it's a good starter for me, but I do realise that I can't rely on it because when it produces stuff, I go, oh, I don't talk like that. But then I look through and I go, oh, that sentence I can use, or that heading is a good heading. So sometimes, give me 25 headings for a LinkedIn profile. Well, what's the number? Probably 150 I went through before I found one that I could work with.
What mistakes do people make when it comes to applying for jobs?
Cut and paste. Oh, using ChatGPT or AI? Yeah, cut and paste. They cut and paste. I just recently had one this morning, cover letter, cut and paste. You could tell. It's just...
How can you tell?
Oh, just the language, the formatting.
So you actually work in recruitment and...
Well, I used to.
Branding.
Now
so what do you do
I used
currently?
to be the recruiter, but
what do you do at the moment?
Now I'm coach. I'm a personal brand coach, and that's where I want to play. I've decided that that's where.
Why did you?
Because I love it. Recruiting, I'll tell you what, this is the truth. This is the truth.
Tell me the truth.
Recruiting, I get the job. I'm really, really excited. Like, yay. And then after a while, my head starts hitting the desk because it's just, it's really, because it's managing people, expectations, and it's a whole lot of things. And I really want to help people, but I can't spend time helping them because it ends up to be quite transactional for me.
So why do you feel like you can hit your head on the table?
Oh, it's just like,
or like, so.
But hang on, but when I'm coaching, never. Never.
So the excitement with being a recruiter is the joy of helping someone get their job.
Yeah.
That's it. Is it?
For me, yeah.
For you.
The money's good. But you get to a time in my life where it's just like, I just want to do things I love doing, where I'm just waking up and going, oh, when I'm reading or I'm doing this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, how can I help someone out? How is this going to help? I'm reading a book at the moment by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. I love reading, right? It's just talking about how moments of time, you just don't get it. Just like miss. And it's just, and then another one by Dr. Tara Swarth, which is The Source. And she's a neuroscientist and neuroplasticity and how the spirit and energy works together. And that stuff. I wouldn't read a recruiting book on how to write a job ad. I mean, I don't even know if they're, how to build your agency to be 25 million. I was like, oh yeah, why not?
Yeah, you could make 25 million if you like.
Oh, I could.
We talked about mistakes people make when they apply. What mistakes do people make when they work on their branding, personal branding?
I don't know. Oh, just heaps. They're human, right? You make mistakes.
Not the technical mistakes of a spelling mistake or
I think they don't.
What mistakes? How do they approach to
personal branding on that journey, you mean?
Yeah. Let's say someone who's just decided to have a personal brand change and they make a mistake, like they do it in a way and it's perhaps not working, what mistakes do people most often make?
I think they, from my experience, I think what happens is they expect the answer. I think I mentioned that before. The answer to suddenly appear, and it doesn't. They don't really understand and not clear about their commitment to their growth and to their investment. So then all the self-limiting beliefs come in, and they really don't understand how to trust the process. And I had that happen recently where a client of mine came back to me and she said, "You are right."
What were you right about?
The fact that she would get a job and it wouldn't be through her CV and applying for jobs, it would be through LinkedIn because she'd done it, but she just didn't trust the process. She got a job through LinkedIn, and she got a job because...
How did she get the job?
Because we set up her profile. I instructed her on what she had to do. She fought back, but she just didn't respond and dilly-dallied around and worked on her CV. And I said, "You're distracting yourself from the key focus, which is get on LinkedIn." And when she finally did it, she got contacted, got the job.
Sounds like a secret sauce.
It could be.
Because I did have a question about the secret to your branding, and sounds like there's no secret to a brand. It's being so honest, transparent, and knowing your why, as you were saying earlier.
Yep.
What tools can someone walk out from here right now to use to get their dream job?
Right. I think they probably read Simon Sinek's book, Why, to figure out their why. Read a book. Get a book. Just what is purpose? There's many of them. I think his is the best though, because it's readable and it's, that you can follow him on YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. He has really good podcasts. So do something pragmatic, trying to figure out how do people get purpose, or how do I get my purpose? I think that's really important, is to figure out your why, and then to sit down and work out, what does that look like? Does that look like in relation to a dream job? What is a dream job? What is it?
There's also a power of writing things down.
Yes, huge power. Journal.
Has it worked for you?
Yep. Vision boards work.
Doesn't.
I used to do them a lot. I gave up and now I've gone back.
How have they helped you?
Oh, because it just gives me hope. Vision. Yeah. And I can see it, the future. And it just, and as I said, I haven't done it for a number of years. I used to be quite good at it, but it's a skill. And now I'm just getting back into it, because one of my clients asked me if she could do a vision board, and I went, absolutely. See, I wasn't telling it. She suggested it. And then she came back to the next coaching session with this amazing, and I thought, I'm going to get back into vision board, do my vision board.
And if we come into your vision board right now, what would we see?
You would see family, pretty much. That's the center of everything. And then around it is, you'll see my coaching practice. You'll see a picture of a office in the garden, a couple of chairs. You'll see travel, planes, lots of travel. You'll see an apartment, because I can't be bothered with maintenance in our old house anymore. And family and friends pretty much dominate it. Oh, training, health, yoga. You'll see me doing yoga retreats. Oh, cooking and salsa dancing.
I love that. That sounds like a idyllic vision board that is unfolding in your life very,
yes.
very soon, or is unfolding as we speak, or it's about to unfold, or will unfold at some point in the future.
It will unfold. It is unfolding, and these are the steps I'm taking, which is to focus on my coaching.
I would like to have an understanding of if personal branding is the same as business branding.
same process. I mean, the business is a bit different. People don't buy businesses, they buy people. So it's the same.
What's the difference between personal branding and business branding?
It's similar but different. So as I said to many people buy people, not businesses. So if you could have a fabulous product and you go into the shop and you've got a really bad customer service person, you're very reluctantly, you may, but reluctantly, and it's not a great experience. So it's always the people that make the connection, and that's where the personal brand is important. And if you look at organisations, CEOs, right, their personal brand is the key to the success of an organisation. And even people like Musk, what's his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. I mean, his personal brand is like so confusing. However, it's all around his creative left field thinking. And that's what people expect. And he's successful at it.
I agree.
So
he's done so many.
Yeah. And so CEOs, senior leaders need to be really, really clear about their personal brand, because if they're not acting and behaving in a way that supports the growth and success in an organisation, then the whole success of that organisation and the people in it, not great.
Have you worked with notable CEOs in the past?
Not really. I know them personally, but not really worked. I've never been a corporate person. I've tried.
Not your cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea.
I want to just touch on differentiating between a personal brand and business brand, and how to differentiate yourself as a personal brand from other people. What about business brands, and how can they differentiate themselves from everything else out there? The noise. I think it comes back to knowing their why. It's always back to the why and what makes them unique. And that's pretty much the factor. Nike do it. They come up with a slogan. What was it? We do good shit, which was another organisation. I thought, that's cool. They got it clear. We do good shit. What's your mission? We do good shit. So it is, and they're very clear about that. So, and once again, I think when we came back to it, we don't tend to overcomplicate life and stuff, and strategy papers and meetings and reports and this way. It was like, get back to the basics of simplicity. I think simplicity of thinking creates creativity and innovation. You take away all that noise and all that stress around it, and you just get it. It just flows. And what I'm observing now, and recently in my trip to New York, is, my late 20s, the cafes are full of people working. They're all working online. And all of my son, my daughter will not go work for a corporate. It's like, no, we do our own thing. And so corporates are struggling to get that kind of talent in their organisation, and they're not looking at ways to attract that talent. That's a win-win for both. So it has to be, you turn up and here you work in your office, or you work from home, but you've got to do this, and you've got to work 50 hours a week and 60 hours a week. You get well paid, but you've got to do the work. Whereas I'll deliver, but in my own way, I'll deliver the time. I can sit in a cafe and work for 4 hours or 5 or 6 or whatever. I can choose how I want to do it. So do you think that the job market now is different and it's leaning more towards?
Well, we've got a generation of mid to late 20s, mid 30s, up to the mid 30s who are just wanting to do their own thing, like you and me. I'm a bit later though, but you know what I mean? It's just, I'm just over it. I'm just over all that politics, and I just want to find and do my own thing and deliver value. So that's, yeah. And I noticed that in New York, the cafes were full. Honestly, they had one cafe we went to had about 5 women working, all had their laptops, drinking coffee, chatting. And I went up to them and said, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're an online lingerie business." They were young, and they had the marketing person there, the founder. So just kept paying.
Wow.
I know. It was just like, wow, that's amazing.
I want to ask about the whole remote hybrid in the office phenomenon that has started after COVID.
Yeah.
And how that's changing how we work.
Yeah, yes and no. I think that the hybrid is more probably it is more acceptable and more expected. And that's basically because it's easier, the traffic and, the traveling and all that kind of stuff, it cuts it down. It gives more flexibility.
Yeah.
And it creates more engagement. But it has to be managed in the sense of you don't want empty office space. And I think that it's really important. Like me personally, I work from home, but I love going into the office. I love meeting people and coffees and chatting because that's where I get my energy. And otherwise I get too isolated looking at my wall and thinking, oh, I don't like, so I don't like me too much when I have too much of me because it's like, oh, give me a break. The remote is different. It's a certain type of job that is remote, and I think that's been set up as a remote job. I recently employed a remote position, companies in Australia, but they've set the job up for it to be these meetings that they do every week. They fly to Australia, Melbourne, every second month, I think, for a week. So they have the processes in place to keep in touch and informed. But yeah, it's set up the office from home, make sure that all the costs for that setup is met, and it's done. So people choose that. That's great. I think that if you're going to, there are certain jobs that can't be hybrid, because they're just the way they operate. And if you like that, well, that's good. Most of those jobs are retail,
in person.
In person kind of things.
Kathryn, what do you see happening in the future in terms of personal branding, this whole being present online and social media?
What does the future look like?
Yeah.
I think the future looks like, for many, and that's no matter what age you are, is about how you position yourself, how you want to be seen by people. So when you walk into a room, whether you're on social media, you control that. So with a personal brand, you have more control over how that is. So because you're very clear how you want people to see you. And if you're going to be, as you get from a career perspective, it's key because everybody looks. When we're looking for a job, I go on to Instagram, Facebook, and I'll look. So if you're not in control of who you are and how you want to be seen by others, then you become invisible, or people have judgments of you, which are not great. So you are the person that controls it. You are the person that determines your success. You are the person that determines how your career goes. You are the person, nobody else. That comes down to your power of choice. And to survive, you need to be visible, you need to be credible, and you need to have trust to create that trust. And when people have those 3 aspects of you, then you have that ability to stand in your power and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I deliver value. You like it? Come get it.
Kathryn, how can people get in touch with you if they want more?
They can go to my website, www.m2m.co.nz. LinkedIn is probably the best way, which is Kathryn, Kathryn Sandford, Sandford, and message me and say, hey, want to chat. I do have a power hour call where you can talk to, schedule in a call through Calendly, and there's a certain format you go through where we talk about how to help you in your career strategy or what it is you need to discuss. I call it takes you past the crossroads of disquiet. That call.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the show, on the podcast, Notes from the Executive. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I've loved it.
You're welcome. One last thing before I ask you, I let you go. If I was to open up your journal today,
Yep.
and what pearls of wisdom would I find? This is a ritual that we do here on the podcast.
For me, it's probably a setback is a step up to the next challenge.
Well, that's great wisdom. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.